All right. Welcome, everyone, to another Logical Gamers podcast. This is Blanka Kong, and we got a full house today. I'm joined with Esoteric Skills of Logical Gamers, Gunner Eos, Zeta Kaiser, and Hado Wolf. Today, we're going to be talking about Pokemon Legends Arceus. The game is scheduled to come out in a few days, so we're pretty excited for it. And so we figured we'd just take some time to have a short conversation about some of the things we want to see in the game, some of the things maybe we don't want to see in the game, expectations, that sort of thing. It's a speculative video. I understand that there are leaks on information for the game. Um, we we will be exploring some of those leaks. So if that is an issue for you, if you prefer to be completely knowledgeless, is that a word?
It is
If you,
now.
it is
Or
now.
ignorant. Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Same
prefer to be
difference.
ignorant to the leaks or vital information that hasn't been showcased in the trailers, then I would recommend you don't listen to this video until playing the game. But leave a like on your way out if you know if you appreciate the spoiler alert. So with that being said, Pokemon Arceus is scheduled to come out in a few days from the day this podcast drops. So I'm gonna kick it off, and I'm just mention kind of the first thing on my list, and that is mainline integration. So, what does that mean? That means that I would love, because I like the way the game. Okay, let me be clear. The art style is fine. It's not amazing. It's nothing groundbreaking. I can live with it. Is it the best looking Pokemon game? Eh, probably not. But it's a pretty good looking game, generally speaking. I'm not talking about the art style. What I'm talking about is the general presentation of the game, the perspective, how the characters move, that sort of thing. I would like for all of that to be integrated in mainline Pokemon games, and that is, I mean, we'll see, but I think that's what Game Freak is trying to pull off. I think they're trying to kind of reboot the series to some degree in terms of how these games move and how they function. And I hope to also see integration to like the research part of the Pokemon universe in future games. So that's something I hope happens. Um, so we'll see. But do you guys have any thoughts on that, or anything you want to kind of throw out there to start the podcast with?
Um,
Yeah, I
I
was gonna. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Wolf.
Nope. Go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say that. I agree with that point. That was actually one of the points that I was going to project to
Nice.
the panel here. Um, I feel like you know companies who that are associated with like Nintendo, they have a tendency to do certain things to kind of like try out and see if it works or whatever with certain games. And I feel
Mhm.
like with this particular game, that is exactly what they're doing, so that the next generation of Pokemon will kind of hopefully look like this. Um, if they are able to execute it, I would I would really love that because that was one of the things I've been looking forward to seeing from since playing like older gens, like seeing you catch Pokemon in real time, seeing them attack in real time and so on. So that would be a nice implementation for future games.
Okay,
I
Wolf.
definitely agree with us. I definitely agree with Esoteric and you as well.
Oh,
I
thanks.
do I do believe that it is their experiment right at this moment. Um, and they're just trying to see, well, if the general public will um, agree to their new design choices
Mhm.
or their new gameplay choices and see where it goes from there. But I definitely would love to see the way that this game seems to be played. I would love to see that in the mainstream competitive style Pokemon as well. I don't expect to run around the opponent that I'm battling, but more in a more in-depth or detailed battle scenario that I can get myself into with someone else online. And
Wanna
just
just throw
even
a Pokeball at somebody's head and win?
I definitely don't want to do that. That's just
Win via
horrible.
concussion.
um, but I do want to see more in depth in the animations of the battles, more in depth in how you explore the areas, of Pokemon. Just giving it a more. I don't want to use the word realistic because Pokemon is far from realistic. I want to use a more.
A more
I mean,
grounded
like
movement.
grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
like a more grounded movement. Not so flat like the previous games are in terms of like exploration,
Hmm.
in a sense.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of Wolf's point, like the way I would have envisioned them making this particular game would be similar to like Final Fantasy 12, where you're fighting in real combat time. However, you're kind of like giving the Pokemon commands as you're moving around and trying not to get hit with you as the trainer. I would like to see that too. I don't know if that was like shown in the trailers. I don't know if that is a part of the trailer where you can potentially get hit as well. Um, Again, my viewership of the trailers are like bare bones. It was like the first initial trailer, so I can't really recall if you yourself took damage, but I would feel like that's welcome too, because while your Pokemon are fighting and you're commanding them, you're kind of prone to being hurt as well, especially fighting wild Pokemon.
Well, it is not exactly a spoiler because it has been in the trailers. You just haven't seen it. That is kind of what happens now. It's less. I mean, I guess it could still happen, but it's less that your Pokemon are fainting, and more you are the person that will faint.
Ah, okay, okay,
So that, like, I don't obviously we don't know the extent to like how much that's incorporated, but that is a part of it that they have in one of the later trailers. Is just like you will get fainted and you will get sent back to a base as opposed to worrying about your team getting wiped out.
gotcha, gotcha. Okay, okay. So then, yeah, I kind of welcome that then.
Um, it's okay. So I guess should get it out there as someone who has the least amount of investment in Pokemon
Get
amongst
out.
this group.
Get out.
Um, yeah, um, I'm looking at Arceus as a Wolf kind of mentioned it. Not he said experiment, but I'm looking at it as a breath of fresh air for me personally. I I'll catch flack for it, but whatever. I feel Pokemon has been in the same design choice for years now with slight variations, but it's been the same game. And it's kind of why I stopped playing it because, I'm not big on competitive battling. Um, it's not my thing. So in turn, I feel less of an incentive to min max my Pokemon, even though I like doing that in an RPG because there's nothing in the main game that really demands that kind of attention, with some exceptions. So when I saw Arceus and I saw some of the trailers, I know nothing of the leaks, by the way. So, and I doubt they would have as big an impact on me as a more invested Pokemon fan. But as far as looking at the official trailers, especially the latest one that came out, I'm kind of liking where the game is going because it's open world, which I know is not a first. I know Sword and Shield kind of started that, kicked that off. Um, the timeline, the time period, I should say, is cool. It's kind of like the origins of humans training and capturing Pokemon. So everything's in its infancy. Pokemon at this point are no more than just wild animals. We don't have that same affection and bond with Pokemon that you see in the rest of the Pokemon entries, where they're our comrades. This Pikachu in Arceus is an electric rat that can probably just kill me. That's where we are with the story. So I kind of like that aspect. I like the catching. Battles seem cool to me from a super casual point of view. I like how you go about catching the legendaries. I know they're called something different in this one. Um, it's kind of like a mini game, a boss battle, not so much my Pokemon versus the legendary Pokemon. So I'm hoping the story's solid and the gameplay just looks different, fresh, and interesting enough to pique my personal interest. So yeah, I just hope it's a solid single player entry. You know, I know there's trading in the game. I don't know if they said anything about battling, but if that exists, I hope it's great for the people that enjoy it. But as long as there's a solid storyline and interesting gameplay mechanics, that'll make me happy. So I'm just hoping it's that, realistically. That's it for
Hmm.
me.
Okay, that's fair. So does anybody want to kind of add a point? Because I have notes here, but I don't know. I don't want to like cut anybody off. I want to give everybody a fair chance. It's a full podcast for 5 people here, so okay. I'll take the silence as a
Yeah, go ahead.
You go first.
okay. Cool. I mean, you guys give me like 2 seconds of silence. I take that as a no. All right. So,
I don't want to. My points. I don't want to jump in too quick. I want to like
want to
get
let it
some things
marinate a
going.
little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
No problem. So, I would like to see more Legends style games in the future. So, like Gunnar had mentioned, I really like the aesthetic of like the time period because it's such a far cry from like what we know the mainline Pokemon games to be. Um, the closest thing I think we got to like what this game is Pokemon Conquest on DS, which I did play. I didn't finish it, but I did play it and I enjoyed it a lot because it was such a different take to Pokemon, and it used like some elements of like real world history, which was kind of cool.
The
So
Samurai Warriors collab, I think, right?
yeah, like Nobunaga was in
Yeah.
the game,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
I love that game.
that's
To me, it was a
freaking sick, right? To me, that's super
very
cool.
fun strategy RPG. Very fun.
Yeah. So I would like to see that explored more. There was a fan made like ROM hack that somebody was working on. I think it was called Pokemon Generation Zero, and it was this idea of like the Indigo Plateau and Pallet Town and like that Kanto region, but during Professor Oak's like childhood. So he was like a young trainer and he got his first Pokemon, and Agatha was, his rival, Agatha from the Elite Four, and he had a Nidoran as his starter Pokemon, and she had I think Ghastly or maybe Nidoran female, and like it looked very old and like I don't know, it was in that like Game Boy style of graphics. I mean, I'm sure you could find like a short snippet of it on YouTube now. Pokemon Generation Zero, like that whole concept was fascinating to me. I was like, oh man, I can't wait for this to come out. But I think the guy who was creating it got hit with a cease and desist. So
So yeah, Nintendo probably came after it.
yeah, they dropped the
Most likely.
project.
Definitely, most
Sadly,
likely.
maybe because maybe that's something that they want to work on in the future, and so they don't want that to exist yet. But
No,
or they're just being
they,
anal about their IP.
yeah.
I mean, that's probably more likely. But anyway, like the point is, like I'm fascinated to know more about like the history in the Pokemon world. Because of again, Gunnar kind of mentioned this, where a lot of the games kind of like not only do they use the same format, but like it's like in this same cluster of time. It's all modernized and stuff, and it's like that's cool and all, but like I would love to go back in time and see what it would be like to explore a world where things aren't as polished and things are a little more wild and a little more like dangerous.
Yeah.
So
Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but Pokeballs in Arceus are like a new invention in that game.
yeah, from my
Yeah, it's pretty
understanding, yeah,
recent.
It seems so, yeah.
yeah, which
Because you
is
have to
Like
awesome.
there's a level of
twist it.
crafting where you have
You
to
have
like
to,
make them.
yeah, and then you have to wind it before you throw it.
Right. So it's not like the streamlined, like 21st
Mm.
century capsule that the current games have.
Yeah.
Which actually, I think is a nod to one of the movies. I could be wrong because I didn't should have gone back and looked into it, but there was a movie where from the anime, and Ash went back in time,
Yeah,
and Professor Oak he ran into as a child, and I believe when Oak threw the ball, he had to wind it the same way that the character does in Legends of Arceus. So I think they took that idea and implemented it to the game. But I trying to remember the scene. It was a very short scene, and they never touched on it again through the movie. And of course, I was a child when I watched it. So,
Hmm.
but I do remember him having like this little knob at the top, and he would either twist it with in the top or in the front, and he would twist it before he threw it to release or catch the Pokemon. But yeah, that's where I think it came from altogether, which is still a pretty cool way to show that this time is dated. That it's back in the past where Sinnoh region just started to establish itself as a community, and before it
Wow,
became a established
Hmm.
region.
wow, that's a really nice implementation. So, one of my questions, because you guys kind of like struck at that point, um, and again, my limitation is based off the trailers. Do they, or would you guys know if they incorporated like combinations? For example, instead of buying potions, you have to kind of like gather them. Like, is there a gathering
You're
implement?
asking for alchemy in Pokemon?
He's asking for freaking. He wants red herb and green herb combined to make.
L-
No, I don't want
Listen,
that.
listen. I'm
Well,
just I'm just saying.
No, I
Like,
think
the
that would
answer
be
I
kind
think
of
is
cool.
yes.
I mean, it's the based off the premise and the setting. This is like the very first stages of Pokemon. So I'm under the assumption based off like the story timeline that they probably don't know much about potions. They'll know it for humans, but they probably don't know much about for the Pokemon. So I would assume that there would be some form of gathering aspect where you're collecting things to kind of heal yourself in the open world. Um, just kind of build yourself up. Because they're not as these particular characters don't seem to be as domesticated as the current gens that we play. You know what I'm saying? So that's just my speculation and something I would kind of embrace. Um, I don't know if you guys
Yeah,
would
well,
like
I'm
that,
not sure.
but
Well, I mean, regardless, it's in there. But I'm not sure if it's for
I
potions and stuff, but I know it is for the balls.
Yeah, that I've seen.
Yeah,
You
it is
you
for the ball.
Yeah.
okay.
But
Now, what I don't want is a saturation of not a saturation, a dependency on that mechanic. That I don't want. What I mean by that is like, for example, you want to make a hyper potion, or to make hyper potions, you need this really rare berry that's in some other region that you have to wait till you get to this part, or you have to put yourself.
Oh no,
It's
no, no,
like
no.
like
Yeah.
that I don't want to deal with, and that can easily happen when you implement an alchemy mechanic. Now, if they do it the way I would want them to do it and say, okay, well, you go to this area, or you got to go through all this trouble to get that material to make hyper potions. But after that, moving forward, you can buy hyper potions, or hyper potions become an easier source for you to use within the game. Then I'm fine with that. But for me to have, like, I don't want to have to deal with rare items to make rare material to make better items. Like, I'm not playing Minecraft. I want to play Pokemon. And I didn't have to deal with that for the last 20 years. I don't want to deal with that now. I'm okay with that with the Pokeballs, but I don't want to deal with that with the potions and the repels and the whatever else that they throw in there that is going to be applied to the game. No, I don't want to deal with that. That's just me personally.
well, would you even need that? Well, will repels even exist? Because I didn't play Sword and Shield, and you could see the stuff
Repels
on
did.
the field. So I don't know if they was there or
Repels did
not.
exist. It did exist. The Pokemon would run away from it. They'll just clear your path.
I mean, couldn't you
But
just
it did.
not engage it?
That too, you can just not engage. That too, you can just run around it. But the way Sword and Shield worked is that the Pokemon they can also populate onto the area that you're standing or that you're near. So like say you're standing near, I don't know, a tree, and a bug Pokemon can just populate and aggro you right then and there.
Ah, okay.
That's limitations of a video game. I expect that in any kind of video game that I play with that kind of build. But again, I'm okay with building the Pokeball. I'm okay with you know, the old style and all that other stuff. What I don't want is when it everything becomes a dependency
That's,
on creating items.
yeah.
That to me, that I don't want.
Yeah,
That
I
shouldn't
didn't
be the
want it
focus of
to
the game.
I didn't want
Yeah.
it to be of that magnitude, but I did want them to incorporate some form of it to kind of push the notion that this is not a established like gen type
Region.
game. Yeah, this is not an established region. Exactly.
But I like the little things that they did. Like you don't have a PC box like you do now, where you pretty much turn the Pokemon into digital data and store them on a computer.
Hmm.
No, you have a ranch, and
That makes
your
sense.
ranch is where you store your extra guys, which has been shown in trailer. So right now, everything I'm talking about has been shown already.
Yeah.
Um, so you have a ranch, and that's where your guys go, and that's where they stay. And then you go to the ranch and you switch out, what you want. I will expect that because it is in the past. I don't think there'll be certain quality of life things that's in it. Like right now in BDSP, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, right now you can access your PC no matter where you are in the game, which is a godsend for someone who does create 2, 3, 400 eggs for one shiny Pokemon, like myself.
Well,
Um, so I don't know if they're gonna have that implement, but I can understand if it's not there because they're trying to fit within the timeline of what the scenario or the game is taking place.
well,
Basic,
to,
go on.
to your point, Wolf, I can see them kind of remedying it in a way of like I did see that you do have mounts in the game, so they could incorporate the flying mount to kind of like distribute your Pokemon from whatever village you are to where you're at, kind of like fly back and forth to bring you
That would
your
be
Pokeballs.
that
I
would be
feel like that would be
brilliant.
nice.
Yeah, that would be brilliant in my eyes. I would love
Hmm. Okay.
it.
So I guess you guys are welcome to enter spoiler territory. Seeing that we kind of dabbled with it a little bit. So again, I mentioned this before we started recording that the spoilers for me that I want to avoid are more visual than they are mechanical or feature based, right? So as long as I don't see what certain Pokemon look like, I mean that's more value. That's a heavier spoiler to me than learning about the ranch or learning about alchemy and making potions and stuff like that. Because those I kind of, you know, it's easy to assume that those features would be in a game like this, right? Where, um, it's old timey, and like the technology of current Pokemon games wouldn't exist in this time period. Which is, I mean, I don't know. They never specified a time period, but I'm getting like maybe 12th or 13th century Japan. Like,
Yeah, I was thinking feudal Japan or something like that.
so, I mean, this is a long time ago. So, a lot of the technology that exists in today's, like, what we would consider a modern Pokemon world, I mean, wouldn't even be fathomable during this time. Um, so yeah,
No cell
I
phones.
leave the floor. Yeah, no cell phones,
Hmm.
no random calls from bug catcher Jimmy. So,
You want to battle?
no, I want to battle you and your three Weedle, you fucking nerd. Um, so what are some of the spoilers that you guys or new features that you guys know about that you want to talk about?
You want to
Uh,
take this setup?
t- I don't have anything for. Oh no, yes I do. But I mean, guess that's a spoiler. Is it a spoiler? Did they not show this in the video? No, yeah, they did. They did. They did. With the with moves. Moves now have not all of them, but moves have different styles. So they have an agility style and a strong style.
Oh yeah, they show. I saw that in a trailer. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
Okay.
official.
yeah. So that is the one of the new non-spoiler mechanics that they added to add variety to how you use moves and what their effects could be. Considering this is a whole new region and a new play style, and certain things just won't work the same because we're trying something different. Like I forgot what the Pokemon was already that did it, but they use what is assumed to be Stealth Rocks, but obviously Stealth Rocks in normal Pokemon it's a setup move. It doesn't do damage unless you change Pokemon or a Pokemon gets fainted and then it comes in and then it takes damage from that. And that
That's Zeta Kaiser. He knows his stuff.
don't lie to the people.
he's a
But yeah,
smart
that
cookie.
is
That one.
threw me off. Damn it. Anyways, yeah, it's like that style of move obviously wouldn't fly, and by the same token, if it's in the game, spikes, poison spikes, uh, whatever setup moves are there. Is that it? Is
There's
it just
sticky
those
web.
three?
There's sticky
Sticky
web,
web.
spikes, toxic spikes, stealth rocks. Yeah,
Yeah,
Well,
those are the
Those are
main
the
ones.
four.
yeah,
Yeah.
those moves that don't do anything, or I guess by extension also roar, but they haven't shown roar yet, or if that's even in the game. So we don't know if that'll actually do anything, or if it's even there.
well, I would assume since this is like real time combat that they would kind of take those moves and kind of transition them over to area of effect moves, like because I there's a lot of from what I saw in the trailer, there's a lot of Pokemon that are like wild in the same area, so you could probably utilize those area effect moves to kind of disorient them or kind of take them out, so to speak. That's what I would assume how they would change it or adjust it in that way.
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
that would be cool. Like
yeah,
you sticky web a
possible.
Pokemon. You throw your guy out, you sticky web the opposing Pokemon, you return your guy and you fucking get out of there. You run out of there while it's stuck in the webs. That's a new way that they can implement it on the on the actual field. So I
Yeah,
think that's a pretty cool thing.
yeah. That they
Yeah.
haven't shown if they have like field moves or not.
Mhm.
I mean, I would like to think that they would, but this is
Me
not
too.
something that they've shown. But that would be, like you said, that would be interesting to have like the sticky web to just even just to catch something, to just be like, all right, I'm just lay this trap out, throw
Hmm.
some bait next to it, Monster Hunter style, and then just watch it walk over to it.
Yeah, or with stealth rocks as well. Like if there's a Pokemon you're having issues with, you can have someone lay out the stealth rocks, and as they're walking, they're kind of taking chip damage for each time they step into the area of effect move. So I feel like that would be like a nice um adjustment, a nice change to those particular moves.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to see because for right now, it just mostly just as far as the two styles go, the agility and strong style. It's just it takes up more PP to use the moves, and it's just like it depends on what you pick. Obviously, it's kind of like self-explanatory. Like the agility style will make things a little bit faster. The strong style is this move will hit harder, but probably with a consequence depending on what it is.
The consequence is your guy becomes immobile for a bit with the
Yeah,
Hmm.
strong
kind of like
style.
solar
Is
beam
that
or
going to be
something.
on everything though? Because that would seem
I
kind of weird.
don't know if it was everything, but when they showed it and explained it, it was like a Shinx, I think, fighting the new scissor with the axes in for hands.
Yeah,
Um, and it did the strong style, and it's then the guy was like, the way he explained it was doing strong style, you don't act as quickly as you could if you did a normal move or quick style, agility style, or whatever that new style is.
yeah,
So one trades power for more activity, the other one trades activity for power.
yeah. It would just seem weird because I know one of the moves that was used is Thunder Wave, and Thunder Wave normally doesn't do damage. It just paralyzes. But you can make
Mm-hmm.
a strong style Thunder Wave, so it's like, well, if I'm paralyzing you, but I'm also stunning myself, this seems unnecessary. Like I'm already going to stun
Yeah.
you. Why would I do the strong style just to add damage on top of that? Especially if I could just do what is it, Nuzzle or whatever the move is called that does
Well,
basically the same thing, just not
think
guaranteeing
about it in
paralyze.
the think about it in the long run, right? It's like the with the paralysis, we don't know what kind of how the mechanic is gonna go. So if paralysis stops immobilizes the Pokemon, for a long time or indefinitely, then it's worth the trade-off. So we don't know exactly what how paralysis is going to work. Even if poison and paralysis and burn and frozen sleep is even in the game, much less. But if the trade-off is okay, so normally your guy doesn't get to move as often because you did strong stuff, but the one uh, that you paralyzed can't move at all. I think that's a pretty fair trade-off. Besides, you can still carry about six dudes with you, so I would only imagine that you can switch out the one that just used strong style for one that's been, that hasn't been used yet. I would imagine that's what they're gonna do, but again, we don't know because
Yeah,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Speaking on your notion to Monster Hunter, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about that was not shown in the trailers, but by spoilers, is there's the boss monsters. They have a very Monster Hunter-ish intro. So that's what I really did like. It's like they get their own little cutscene, and then their name shows up, and then the battle starts between you and them. I kind of like that because that really should imply more characteristics to the Pokemon. So you get to see one of the reasons why we love Monster Hunter is because of those intros. We get to see exactly how like a Rathalos is naturally, or before a fight will start, or a Diablos in his habitat. We get to see those really cool, in the old Monster Hunter games was called ecology
Yeah.
Yeah.
trailers. Well, this one kind of has it for the intro for the bosses. So I am going to spoil something for one of the boss monsters is Arcanine, and
Yeah.
it's and
Doggo.
um, he actually has his own specific arena. Like they gave him a special arena for himself that you fight him in, and not only does the arena fit this new style of Arcanine, but it also fits the fact that Arcanine was originally designed to be a legendary Pokemon. So it
Yeah.
gives him this legendary status, this powerful status that I think he was well overdue for, um, as one of the coolest Pokemons in my opinion. But the 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 way that the whole fight was is just like you get to feel that intensity behind what Arcanine should be. And as someone who's followed Pokemon for almost every generation in almost every game, I greatly appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to see what the other boss monsters or boss mons are gonna be like in the future in the game.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and to kind of piggyback off of Wolf's point, um, they always alluded in some of the Pokedex entries of Arcanine being considered legendary. So that's nice. That's a nice addition to the game, kind of, making that notion that he's not to be played with.
Yeah,
They
give him some
did.
respect.
It's just a good board
Yeah.
type at best.
They did, but then they went and made him like the standard Pokemon for the police. So like a lot of cops in the Pokemon games had Growliths, so it kind of
Yeah.
like dilutes that a little bit. But Arcanine's still my favorite. So the fact that he plays a central role in this game just makes me happy.
Yeah,
And
and I think you guys are going to love his alternate form. I think it's a really cool form compared to his other form. Listen, they did him justice in this game. That's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
You
and
take nothing else away from this podcast. Arcanine got justice.
and Wolf kind of mentioned something I was thinking about um on my own time, which kind of is a reason why I, as a casual, frankly, kind of I'm liking Arceus the way it's looking, is because it kind of reminds me of what I would like to see from a Monster Hunter game, a spin-off, kind of like in the same vein of
Stories.
stories, yeah, where you don't play as a hunter, but you play as a researcher. Like I would
Hmm.
like that's kind of why I like Pokemon Snap, because I kind of feel like that. Um,
Mhm.
so it feels like that's what you are in Arceus. You're a Pokemon researcher because it's not about going out there to catch them all. It's about we don't know what this thing is. So we're gonna send you as part of the survey squad because apparently we're doing a Attack on Titan style squads in
It's the final
Arceus.
season.
Yeah, right. So again, for those who've seen the trailers, you are part of the survey squad. So you go out into the wild, and in this game, it is the wild. It's not just the grassy Route 10. Um, and they're like, I need you to observe a Shinx. I need you to observe an Oddish. And you will go out there, and the way you observe is via capturing, but it kind of like again, it goes back to it being a different type of game when you're not trying to catch them all, you're not trying to beat gym leaders. You're trying to like just basically figure out what these creatures that live in your world are. And I always wanted that from a Monster Hunter game, where you play as a researcher and you're not fighting the Rathalos, but you're studying the Rathalos. And you have to like get its movements, its mating patterns, what it eats. And you're not doing that in Arceus. It's that's more extensive, but it kind of feels like that. And I just find that really
Well,
cool.
it plays a part because you are researching, so it's like it's not just a like how it is in normal Pokemon where it's like you catch it once, it's a one and done kind of affair. Like you have to catch the Pokemon multiple times. It probably doesn't stand up as to why you would need multiple of the same thing just to study it, but
I've heard people say that seems like, why do
we
you
could
need
take
5
we could take the dark route
Pikachus?
of why we need multiples of something to study it because
Things
one will
die.
die,
Yeah.
and we need to experiment more on why you like this or what makes you tick.
Well,
Yeah, it
let
could
me
also be
just.
sizing and stuff like that
Yeah, I
as
was gonna
well.
say like it could be certain Pokemon in like certain parts of the world. Like let me think of an example. Like Krabbies in the South Shore might behave differently than Krabbies in like the different side of the island, or I don't know, something like that, where the
Yeah.
habitat has an effect on the Pokemon's um behavior and like dietary preferences. And so all of that information would be compiled into like the Pokedex. Is like, well, Krabbies are known to do this, this, and this. Although that isn't universal, Krabbies also do this, this, and this. So like I justify it in that way, because that's how real world works and that's how animals
Yeah.
are. They adapt to their environment and their ecosystem. So
Yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense. And not, although with through the naked eye of Pokemon, they all look the same, uh, but they're actually different. So it would be nice to see, like, for example, Bidoof. Some are a lot larger and some are a lot smaller than their normal size. That would be interesting as well.
Well, spoiler for you, that's also a thing. I don't know
Oh,
how
okay.
in depth that is, but they do say that. So I don't take that as like full gospel that you're gonna fight like a giant Bidoof just roaming the lands looking for trees to freaking eat.
Yeah, because I know it's kind of articulated in Pokemon, like they can be in different sizes, but to actually be able to see the size difference, that would be nice. Like I'm kind of seeing this game take some aspects of Monster Hunter, since there are technically monsters, and it is open world and you're kind of like figuring out what the hell is going on. So I kind of envision it in that way. They're not going to take every aspect, but I do see some little things that they could piggyback off of and emulate in this particular game.
Hmm. Any specific Pokemons you guys would like to see?
Well,
Um,
you already told me, so I won an Arcanine. So that.
But once you saw Growlithe in the trailers, you knew that Arcanine was
Oh
gonna be.
yeah, yeah. So that's
uh,
like the major one for me.
I mean, we know who my favorites are, so
well, the viewers or
Yeah,
the listeners don't know, so why don't you share?
I mean, if I have to, I would like to see my my main favorite, which would be Gardevoir, and Sneasel slash Weavile, and I would like my secondary favorites to be in there, like Skarmory, Drapion, and who else would I like? Absol. There we go. Drawing a blank.
Yeah, that
Soil is a Hoenn, right? He's from
Ooh,
the
which one?
Hoenn region. Absol. He's
Yeah,
from the Hoenn region,
Absol's
right?
third generation. Yep.
Third gen. Okay.
I would like
I
to see,
mean,
like,
I've left out
Magmar.
Garchomp because he's supposed to already be. Well, that map becomes where Garchomp lives, so I've left him out because I'm expecting him to be there. It's just
mhm.
as is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry to
But
cut you off, Wolf. I was just gonna say that I would love to see, like, Electivire, Magmortar, I mean, they don't have to be those evolved forms, but they could have Electabuzz and Magmar. Those would be some nice Pokemon to have here.
I definitely hope they make a return because they are. there are Sinnoh region Pokemon. I think Electivire was it. Yes, Electivire was
Yeah,
introduced in season 4 in
yeah.
Gen 4. So was Magmortar.
Yeah.
Um, most Gen 4 is my favorite gen. So one of the reasons why I even tolerate BDSP is because it is my favorite gen. Um, and then even more so, I'm happy that Legend of Arceus is focused on the Sinnoh region as well, because they could have taken any region. They have
Mhm.
8 regions, and they could have taken any region and make Legend of Arceus. Maybe I still would have played it, but I'm more so grateful that they chose. I feel like I was lucky enough that they chose the Sinnoh region to do that with.
Well, I think that was done very intentionally, to be quite honest. Because I believe what is that for Platinum? That's like one of the top games, or was like one of the most favorite games to like the other ones started to come out.
Yeah, to
Because I could have
piggyback
easily,
on. No, go ahead, Wolf.
what I was saying is, I could have easily seen them do it with. I think it's Sun and Moon that was focused around like the war. Was it Sun and Moon or X and Y that was
X and
focused
Y.
on like
X and Y.
X and Y, right? Like it was a war between humans and Pokemon, and we almost got eradicated. Um,
Well, rightfully
but
so.
Should
yeah,
have
I don't even know how we're in existence in that world, but you go.
plot armor.
Yeah.
so either way, they could have done something with that because I thought that was a pretty dark turn of events or a dark story to use to focus on X and Y's story or plot. Like the guy pretty much wanted to recreate, the main villain wanted to recreate that war or use the weapon from that war to do what he needed to do to the earth or to Pokemon or whatever.
Well, you see that guy's
Um,
haircut? Can't be trusting
yeah.
people like that.
So I think it was a pretty dark storyline instead of just stopping Pokemon Mafia. But um, he took it to a whole nother level. He wanted mass genocide. Um, so they could have gone with that, and it could have been a storyline where you are in the middle of that war, and you do have to protect yourself from many hostile Pokemon, and that still probably would have worked. But that's why I say I'm very grateful that they chose the Sinnoh side, because at least I get to play this new style game with my favorites that I am expecting to see. They have already confirmed Chimchar. Awesome. But I want to see Gligar because I do want to use my Gliscor. I want to see Electivire because I do love Electivire. I want to see Gastrodon. I want to see, Ambipom. These are Pokemons that I want to see because these are Pokemons that I legitimately like them. So I'm stoked for the fact that they gave me the Sinnoh region to play this new style in. I can't I think I feel like we're all gonna get the old starters as usual. I think that's like Charmander, Bulbasaur, Squirtle. They're all might as well just be considered regular Pokemon by now. Um, so I'm expecting to see them, but as far as other gens go, I would definitely love to see, the things of like the return of Scizor. I don't want to see this new Scizor replace the old one. I would like for them both to be in the game. I would still love to see things like random Pokemon like Tailo from the third gen or Camrump. I like Camrump. Not many people do, but I do. Um,
I don't
you
even
know,
know
like
what it is.
it's a camel. That's a fire type and a ground type. Um, but either way, there are Pokemons that I do like that is more not so popular, but I would still love to see them because then I'll get to experience them in this new game. But for the most part, I don't have a dedicated wish list because I'm pretty much guaranteed to get my favorites anyways. So, what about you,
Fair
Blanca?
enough.
Well, real quick before we go there, because I'll forget otherwise. As far as X and Y goes, was the war in the past, or was it supposed to be like a recent based
No, it
thing?
was
No,
in the
it
past, so
was
it's not the
yeah,
Lieutenant Surge War. It would be like hundreds of years before.
yeah,
Because I was gonna say, like, the only reason I think why this game has to be the way it is because it's like it's supposed to be the beginning. So it's just like we have to, like we were saying, we have to craft items. We have to figure out how are we actually working, because the war you're saying makes it seem like we've already established it, and then we're like there's a conflict between them. Like, all right, I don't really like these Pokemon anymore. Let's fight, as opposed to us just trying to discover what's going on.
That war was more like it was like a territorial battle, as if like we moved in, or some people will
Yeah,
say
that's what I
how
mean. It's
we
like we
pushed
already know what
on this
Pokemon
area.
are. Now
Yeah.
now it's just like get out. We want to do whatever with this amount of land or area,
Oh,
as
as
opposed
if
to like
like they
what
don't
this
want to
game is.
they don't want to coexist, basically.
Yeah, as opposed to what this game is. Just like there are these creatures. What the hell are they? We have to like figure this out.
Yeah, they're like small human settlements scattered around the region. We're kind of huddled there, and the outside world is full of these creatures that we don't know what they do. We know they're just not, the run of the mill thing. This thing shoots beams out of its mouth. Why? Like, child, go find out.
The perfect researcher. That's the only thing I wanted to add. Is just like I didn't know where X and Y story was as far as the war was concerned. Where
Mm.
it did, like I said, they didn't have to use Sinnoh, but I feel like their only other option would have been Johto or Kanto, because it would have to be something that's older to like make sense for people who are. Well, I mean, I guess they don't have to care because they could have did anything, but just to
And then
bring
but
in older people or the older generation fans, it would make more sense to use the earlier games.
All right, so before I forget this point, because it's been like 10 minutes since I had this thought in my head, and it just came back because I did lose it. Um, yeah, to piggyback off of what Zeta was saying about them choosing Generation Four, it was 100% intentional because Generation Four was established in 2006, so that's
hmm
about 15 years ago, right?
hmm
Um, any 5-year-old is now 20. Any 10-year-old is now 25. So, which is
hmm
their core demographic. Those people are
Yeah,
old
nostalgia
enough.
bait. Let's go.
Yeah, it's older. They're old enough to be able to afford the games by themselves and to have the nostalgia of Generation Four. We are not that demographic. We are Gen One babies. So while they do get our money for sure, um, this game wasn't necessarily made for us per se. We weren't the prime target, in my opinion, based off just like that fact, right? Um, and working in sales and stuff, like this is how some of these people think. So,
hmm
it's kind of like the dark side of business is, capitalizing on an
It's
opportunity.
really the dark side
Whether
of
it
business,
whether
but
it's
that's
it's,
really how
it's
business is.
yeah, whether it's like moralistic or not, I mean that's a different conversation, but yeah, so that's one. Two, Pokemon that I want to see make a introduction. I am actually really intrigued to see some of the sillier Pokemon come into the game. As to like okay, for example, Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee, right? Like those are clearly influenced by like martial arts, right? What does a
hmm
Hitmonchan look like in the 14th century Japan? Something like that where it's so modern. It's like how do you make
hmm
that work? Because clearly they have to be different. A Hitmonchan can't be a Hitmonchan back then, right? Because boxing wasn't even the thing. Like that sport didn't exist yet.
hmm
Um, so yeah, Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee. Who else would be interesting? Mankey. I love Mankey. That's one of my favorite Pokemon. A super fluffy Brawlic Mankey would be sick. Um, who else? Pokemon like Jinx. Like, what the fuck would a Jinx look like in 14th century Japan or feudal Japan? Like, what does that even look like? What could that even look
It's
like?
just a normal woman you throw a ball at.
Is it? I mean, maybe. I don't know. So weird Pokemon like that, I would really like be interested to see. Like, what does Gengar look like? What do ancient ghosts look like? I don't know. So it's less so my favorites and more so like the more obscure Pokemon, um, and how the designers would find a way to make them work in the time era, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
That does make sense.
I was thinking more about like seeing more organic Pokemon. Like I don't want to see Aegis Flash floating around in this era. Like, I want to see Pokemon that would seem reasonable within this. And that sounds really weird because all of them can pretty much kill you to some degree. Um, but I want to see like reasonable Pokemon, like maybe see a Sand Slash or like Sandshrew or whatever. Kind of see like what a Pidgeot would look like. Just organic Pokemon that actually resemble what they are. Like to see a Metagross, I'm like, that's kind of weird. I don't. What the hell is
Yeah, like
that?
I don't see steel Pokemon coming in there, right? Because it's like I feel like that wouldn't it just wouldn't exist, right? But they could put it in and say like, well, that's how humans discovered different metals. It was thanks to Pokemon. It was from mining Pokemon
But,
or from studying Pokemon. Like that's a route they could take.
That's true. I mean, I could kind of see some. For example, I could see Steelix because, again, as you noted, towards like the whole environmental experience in the game, um, you could have an Onyx that's in a cave, but where steel is manifested, Onyx could kind of like have drifted to there and became a Steelix because it lived there for many, many, many years or something like that. Which could be plausible because we don't know the longevity of some of these Pokemon, so that would be something to see.
yeah, well, we know you're going to give Wolf a heart attack because going by what you want, that means we're going to get a lot of Spinaracts, a lot of
Yep.
Heracrosses, a lot of, well, you're going to give me
Yep.
a heart attack too because there's going to be a lot of Raticates, Ratatats.
That'll suck.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
so,
like it'll feel
no,
more.
your point makes sense. I just know that on a personal level, I don't want what you want because I don't want to see Raticates and Ratatats out in the field trying to run up on me because it's like, all right, well, I'm done researching. Time for me to be just a simple shopkeeper.
Yeah, so what you want is actually the opposite of what I want. You want Pokemon that are gonna make sense, and I want Pokemon that don't make sense, but they find a way to make it make sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
it does.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
yeah,
You want them
that's interesting.
incorporated within this timeline,
Well, I
like
want to challenge the designers to find a way to make this shit work.
Yeah.
Like I want to see what that looks like. But I'm gonna be honest with you, my expectations are on the lower end for that. I don't expect them to go crazy. I think it's gonna be mostly really low hanging fruit Pokemon choices.
It's, or if they do go for something, it's going to be something that's semi-safe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%.
Like the Scizor thing. I keep saying this. It has a name. I just don't remember what it is. Like that's relatively safe. Instead of being praying mantis, it's like it's still praying mantis, but it's with axes, so it just cut trees down.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna
Yeah,
stay
they
really
definitely went
close to
safe.
its original design.
Yeah.
They definitely went safe. I mean, even with the Hisuian forms, most of those forms is from the more popular Pokemons that are in that game already. So, like I mentioned Camlump earlier, even if he is in the game, we both know that, Arcanine has a form. He's a very popular Pokemon. We know Scizor has a form. He's a very popular Pokemon. So, and of course the starters. The starters they chose are popular Pokemon, amongst other starters. So they even went safe with that. Um, so I think this game is all about the only real gamble they're doing with this game, in my opinion, is
The style itself, basically.
exactly the style of the game. But I think everything else, all the assets that they're putting in the game, are played safely. I feel so.
in regards to the art style, I think they were trying to go for that it's a famous Japanese waterfall painting. I think it's called like Fu- Furoshiki or something like that. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But when I look at some of the Pokemon and how like their mains flow, it kind of flows like that particular painting from what I see. So
Hmm. Okay.
that's why I think they did it that way. And that kind of only substantiate my point. Like there, this timeline is, it seems like feudal Japan, you know, maybe slightly before that.
Mm, yeah, yeah. I'd say feudal. The clothes kind of point towards that.
Yeah, kind of like, you know, how they wearing the scarves around their neck, the garments, like, um, you know, just little things like that. The way that the I can't speak particularly on the guy, but the girl, like the way she wears the bandana over her hair, like those little things I see.
I agree with the timeline.
Those damn
That you said.
subtleties.
It's funny you made
I,
that comparison to Monster Hunter, and the last Monster Hunter game was like heavily Japanese culture inspired, and this Pokemon game comes out a year later, around the same time, and has like a very similar art style. I wonder you know what happened. Like
Is it?
there has to be a connection there of some kind. I would imagine.
Yeah.
I would assume
definitely
so.
some influence.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean,
but
no, go ahead,
the
Wolf.
game looks like it. The game looks like it's gonna be. I don't know because Game Freak has been off their rockers lately. The game looks like it's going to be solid. Um, I don't know why they would incorporate trading or what is the sense because it's not like it's being coupled. It's not like there's Legends of Arceus Black and Legends of Arceus White or something. It's literally the same game. So what am I trading? Um, a
Probably
person
to
for?
help people out. So like if I play the game a lot more and you don't get a lot of time to play the game and you are trying to finish like your research on Growlithe, I can help you with that. And this is like, oh, I need a Growlithe that weighs 20 pounds. I've yet to find one. Like I can, if I have a 20-pound Growlithe, I can trade it to you and help you in your research. And then maybe you have a Charmander that lives in a certain habitat, that eats a certain
Mhm,
dietary, that has certain dietary normatives, and so I need that
mhm,
Charmander from the swamp or from the volcano, and so we can
mhm.
kind of exchange notes in the form of Pokemon trading. I think that's what they're going for.
Okay.
Does
Oh,
that make sense?
that makes
That's
sense.
it's the only thing that kind of does make sense because
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's
Yeah,
no
that makes
battling then.
Yeah, and so if that works, if the game sells as well as I expect it to, because I expect it to do extremely well for them, I can see them exploring it further and coming out with more Legends games and it becoming
its
a
own.
Thing of its
strong
own.
spin-off title, kind of like how Pokemon Ranger, Pokemon Mystery
Mystery
Dungeon kind of
Dungeon.
became
Mystery
its own
Dungeon, yeah.
thing, and those games, they don't come out too often, but when they do come out, like people eat that shit up, and those games are solid for what they are. So, and there's definitely like a fan base dedicated who only play that game. So,
Y- Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the way Arceus or I think Wolf said it, Arceus, because I found out that's like the proper way to say it. It's not Arceus. It's
Arceus.
Arceus.
Arceus. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Arceus. Um, if this is looking like something that would interest me personally, so if the bones are good and they do want to kind of keep that going, maybe not as the new face of the mainline Pokemon, but like you said, a spin-off in the vein of Mystery Dungeon, the strategy RPG, in that just a spin-off title that has its own, you know, storyline and is different from the main thing. That's fine because, I've always said it. Multiple things can exist within a fandom or within any given franchise, and there's a place for everybody in it, and you'll have the games to represent that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Esoteric, but I'll
No,
just
no,
say
no. I
this
was
just
just
quickly.
agreeing. Go ahead.
Um, if you look at like Pokemon's like financial data and like what actually makes them money, their games actually makes them like the lower end of like their profit line. Like they make most of their money from merchandising, Pokemon
Hmm.
cards, TV deals, etc., things like that. So if they can further expand that market, establishing a new style of game, right? Because now think about how many Growlithe plushies people are gonna want, right? With the new Growlithe style, like that's all intentional. Like it's not, none of this shit is by accident. I mean, you guys know that, and I think most people listening to this probably are aware of it, or even if they aren't aware of it, the moment I say that, they go, oh yeah, that does make sense. Like it'll just click because it's just sensible. So yeah, like it's good for us because it's a new gameplay style, and it could spell better games in the future, especially if they implement that style across the mainline games, which is fingers across, right? Because we've been asking for higher quality Pokemon games for decades now, right? And
Yeah.
Yep.
we haven't been getting them, yet we still support the franchise, we still buy the games. Pokemon, it cannot fail. Like it is too big to fail, and the executives at Nintendo and Game Freak and Pokemon Company know that, right? And so they will continue to exploit it, and they'll continue to make their money. I'm just hoping that maybe we get something good along the way. So, yeah.
Hey, you're
Yeah,
not wrong.
that makes sense.
I can't tell you how many like threads I've read of very upset Pokemon fans that pre-ordered 2 copies of the game. Like, it's a very
Two,
weird contrast.
2 copies of what game, Arceus?
Well, no,
Two copies of any
Yeah,
like
game.
just
yeah,
in general.
Oh, any one of them. Oh, okay, okay.
like people were complaining. I know Sword and Shield was really divisive for the Pokemon community, from what I've read, and you got people complaining about the Pokedex situation while pre-ordering Sword and Shield.
Didn't matter. It was the most fastest. I don't know if it's the fastest. It was the highest selling one. I don't know if it was the fastest selling one. So the complaining didn't mean lickety split.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's my thing, is that I bought Sword and, well, I didn't buy Sword and Shield. I bought Shield. I think Shield. Um, I bought Shield with an expectation that the game, that that the issue that they had with the national debts, they at first said that it's because of that they wanted to reboot the franchise, that they're looking to so then they said it was due to video game limitations. Then they said it was due to time restraint. It's like they constantly kept coming
Update
up with,
animations.
right, and animations, and plenty of fans have proven that they've recycled a lot of
yeah,
their
I've seen
animations from earlier games.
extremely detailed breakdowns. It's like, whoa, this is some fucking X-Files shit right here.
So, um, so when you do stuff like that, okay, how can I put it? When they at I bought the game because I am a fan of the franchise, and I feel like I should give the game a chance regardless. However, I can say that as someone who played the game, I can give it that criticism that Sword and Shield is an extremely, extremely weak entry in or a title in the overall, when you compare all the games from the past, present, and I guess BDSP would be future. Um, it is extremely weak. I still have more fun playing a remake of Diamond and Pearl that's nowhere near as graphically strong as Sword and Shield than I do have than playing Sword and Shield. The game isn't fun. I can go back and I have competitively built Pokemon, and the community for it is still strong because there are people who are still looking for shiny Pokemon. There are still people who are running, their own little tournaments for it. It's a very strong community, but I just feel like the entry is so weak. I don't have fun playing that game. But I feel like I can say that because I invested time into that game. I put time into that game.
Yeah,
Still doesn't.
absolutely. For you to, critique something that you haven't even saw or played, it's kind of like it doesn't make any sense. It at least in my opinion, give the game a shot, then give your critiques, and by you giving the game a shot, kind of gives you more concrete opinions of the game, as opposed to others who's like, well, I see giant rat, I don't like the game. That's it. You know, well, have you tried it? Have you played it? No. So then, how can you give your input on something that you've never even played or at least researched? You know.
The giant rat. Who wants giant rats?
Clearly not you. I know that. I'm just saying is that yeah, there's a lot of the Pokemon community. I feel like a lot of people are. It is very divisive. It's how you say the word. Gonna it's very
Divisive, yeah.
divided. It's
Divisive.
Oh,
Divisive.
divisive, right? It's very it's divided. Like you'll always get those. I I watched a video the other day and it was like a lot of people who were more into the new gen Pokemon they complain that the old gen games are very boring or very flat or very plain compared to the new ones that we have now. And then a lot of the ones that have been playing the game since Gen 1 will say, well, the design of Pokemon the quality of the design of the Pokemon have gone down in in quality. Um so the community has always been a very uh, two sides of the same coin kind of scenario where they're the same but they're also very different amongst each other. Um,
Yeah, they're complaining about the same thing, but it's just different sides of the same thing.
right, different sides of the same thing because like newer gen players complain that the old gens have bad designs, and then the old gen players are complaining that the new gen guys Pokemon have not so great designs. So it's like you guys are arguing the same point. Like it's a
Spider-Man meme all over
subjective.
again.
Right, it's a subjective kind of scenario. Like you can dislike Voltorb and still like Chandelier, or you can dislike Garbodor but still like Magnemite. Um, so it's okay. You can like what you like, you can dislike what you dislike, but the Sword and Shield entry was just like I have to spend extra money to get the full game. They they
Yeah, that I
they
can agree is a pretty scummy. Yeah, that's pretty lame.
they I didn't get the national decks right away. A lot of Pokemon didn't. A lot of the new Galar Pokemon weren't even interesting. Like none of them are memorable. None of them really stood out to me.
Oh no, I
I
didn't
can't
play the
even.
game, but I remember one
Right.
now after I complained about it the other day with the literal lizard popping out of an apple.
Yeah.
the apple pie Pokemon. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna forget that.
That's a thing. Um. Cinderace. The starter Pokemons will always stand out to me because the starter Pokemons, if no one ever knew, is always based on something. They always take some lore from somewhere and then they redesign the Pokemon, the starter Pokemons to be based off of that lore or to connect with that region. The Galar starters, one is a soccer player, or at least in Britain they call it football. Um, the other one is a spy, what's James Bond from. Is it I believe he's English, right? Um,
Yeah,
Yes.
he's
Yes.
British.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
he's English.
He's
Yeah.
British, right. And then the other one is he's a guitar. He's not a guitarist, he's a
Drum
drummer,
So
player.
is he a drummer?
right. He's a
Yeah.
drummer. So they the design is really nice for the three starters, which I think makes them very cool Pokemon, which I think all the starters are naturally designed well for the most part. But overall, Sword and Shield was just like why would I want to drink why would I want to drink tap water when I can have Poland Spring? That's what Sword and Shield feels like. Sword and Shield feels like tap water. Like it'll guess I guess it'll quench your thirst if you're that thirsty. Um, but it's still not Poland Spring.
So it's
It's
water, but it's not the
still
best water.
Not
it's
Fiji.
right. It's or Fiji. It's like it's still water, but it's not the quality of water that a person would want to put in their body. You really shouldn't be drinking tap water to begin with, but you get the point. At least I hope I made sense anyway.
It makes sense for me. That's all I do is drink water. I get very annoyed at my job because we have spring water and then we have purified water, which I'm air quoting, and I hate it when they get the purified water.
See?
Okay.
But anybody else? Any thoughts? I know Blanca Khan probably disagrees with me on my point of view of Sword and Shield. So I don't know if he has something to say to that.
Um, no, I think it was a weak entry. As well. I don't have as much hatred for it as you do. I think, but I don't. It's not. It's not in my favorite. It leans, you know,
It's on the weaker
it's on the
side.
weaker side, if anything. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I do disagree with your assessment on the starters for Galar, though. I don't. I think the pre-forms, the first forms, are stronger than the final forms of said Pokemon, which I know they were going for a theme, but I don't
Hmm.
I don't feel like they executed it as well as they could have. I don't like any of the starter final evolutions from Generation 8 personally.
Is that the one that had the Harry Potter fox?
No,
No,
No.
No, that was
that's the one.
Oh,
The last one or two ones before it. I forget now.
that was X and Y, I
that was
believe.
X and Y.
All right,
oh,
so
okay.
that's
Never
two
mind.
games back.
Yeah, this one had
Yeah.
the secret agent lizard with the gun, the handgun. Like he pointed, he did like a gun gesture with his hand, and he shot water out of there, which
And
was supposed to be the James
Gex,
Bond Pokemon.
Gex was trying to make a comeback. That's all.
Gex.
Yeah, Gex can stay in 1996. Um, Cinderace is a bunny that plays soccer, which I think is the strongest design.
Oh, he's from that Pokemon Unite game. Okay, yeah, I know him.
Yeah, and the last one,
Wow.
Rillaboom, which really annoyed me personally. I think he's the worst design out of the three. I really
Why
hate
did
how he looks.
Rillaboom why did he annoy you the most? I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was like I don't know. I saw him and I saw Donkey Kong.
I hate
I don't
I
know.
hated it
Yeah.
because I mean okay, this is turning into a let's shit on Generation 8 podcast. I'll make this quick. But like if you look at Groki and the second form, which I forget his name, like they have the drums. Like, he has one stick, then he has two sticks.
Hmm.
And he has a very specific look. And then
Hmm.
It's a
the
flowing
last
mane.
form, he becomes a giant monkey who now has a drum, right? And it's a part of his like anatomy, right? It's a thing he has with him all the time. And then like he grew out his hair. And I understand the design idea is like, oh well, you know, hair bands from the 80s from Britain or whatever. I get that, but I don't think it coincides with the previous two forms. It feels super random. I felt the same way about Crab Brawler and his final form in Sun and Moon. Like it goes from a boxing crab that's like kind of beat up to this giant monstrosity. And it's like, how did that happen? Like, I don't really understand the correlation here. So I don't know. I didn't care for it. I actually really hate that Pokemon. Um, so that's just my personal opinion. If you're a real Boom fan, that's fine. You can like it, but I hate it. Um, but yeah, I think we should wrap up. We're about out of time. Unless you
No.
guys have some like final thoughts or anything you want to share,
I only
Well,
had one other point, but I don't think
go
we're gonna
for
have
it.
time for it.
I mean,
I was
if
gonna
go for it.
It was just gonna be like what I know Wolf knows because he has no shame and he went to go look. But if we have any speculations on what the starters would evolve into, since they've been very particular on not showing them ever evolving, like they've done that intentionally. So I imagine that they would have new typing, since obviously we would know what they would turn into.
I know what they look like, but I don't know their typing.
I thought it showed the typing, so that's why I didn't even bother
No.
clicking. So
well,
Yeah.
I just know for sure I don't want Cyndaquil to be firefighting because there are too many firefighting starters. There's almost four because for whatever reason, Incineroar is fire dark, even though he's clearly a wrestler. But like back to back, there have been firefighting up until who did it stop at? Because it was just 3 games in a row where they all was just firefighting.
I think it's because
So Blaziken,
It's Blaziken,
Infernape.
Infernape.
followed by
or
Embor, and it
then
was those three.
Incineroar afterwards, right?
It was no, Incineroar was later, so it was Blaziken.
Okay.
Oh my god, I just had it.
Fennekin
Blaziken,
was the
Infernape. Fennekin was between.
Finnegan was the fire psychic.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
Fire
Yeah,
Psychic. That
yeah.
was
So it
a
was
That
round
was
three.
game.
It was three
between
in a
Black
row.
and White and
Yeah.
Sun and Moon. It was the X and Y one.
Yeah, so I know I don't want that for him, and then the other because it's only for that because the other elements are kind of just random. They either just stay a mono element or they'll mix with something else. It was just fire for some reason that always went with half fighting. So
I think
even
it's
though
a
we was
popularity choice. I think when they did Blaziken and made him a firefighting, that because of that, it helped blow up the
yeah, they just
popularity of fire starters. So I think they went with that again.
yeah. But it's just weird that they don't do it with the other starters. Like the other starters just they're just random on if they will have something or if they're not. Like sometimes it'll be grass ground and then it'll just be regular grass.
The grass has gone through the most consistent changes. Water is usually just water. I think there's only ever three of them that mix, which is water dark, water steel, and water ground. That was about it. Other than that, all the other ones have either been plain water. Yeah, they've all been plain water.
Yeah. So I know we was making fun of Chandelier earlier, but I was just like I would like it if he was like a fire ghost. I know that won't happen but that's what I would have liked. Or
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Well, just to make one final point, since the game is in real time, I'm hoping that the evolutions are in real time as well. Like while you're battling, let's say there's a bunch of Bidoof around or whatever, and you're fighting, you're gaining EXP. Hopefully, the Pokemon evolves in real time, and then you continue to combat. Um, Another thing that I'm hoping for is that the thing is with Pokemon games, they're extremely customizable in terms of like stats or whatever. I know if I'm not mistaken, they don't really touch base in that regard in this game, but I'm thinking more about like accessories. So for example, similar to Pokemon Unite, where you're able to get certain gear for the Pokemon. Hopefully, you can like do that to make your Pokemon look different. Just some minor things. They're not necessities, but again, Pokemon is known for you being able to customize your Pokemon to some degree. Not so much aesthetically, but more so um statistically. But it would be nice to have them focus on the aesthetically aspect of it.
I definitely know your trainer does, or your uh, squad member, whatever we call them in this game, because they're not trainers. But you can change your clothes and your hair. But I know that's been going on for a while, so that's not.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't want anything crazy like get a scarf to put around that's able to be universal for every Pokemon. Like something that's not too specific to a particular Pokemon, but more so universal. Like you can put a scarf on all of them, change the colors, things of that nature.
I'm okay with things like that if they put it in there. Like I said, my biggest gripe with the whole game, I know a lot of people have been complaining about how they don't have abilities or they don't have held items. It's abilities I can see being in the game or should have been in the game because abilities could have helped with those boss fights or coming across wild Pokemon because some abilities do affect the gameplay while you're on the field. Um, so I can like, all right, I see that abilities could have been in the game, but the lack of held items, I don't see the point of them bringing that back. I don't see the point of them bringing back IVs and EVs. It's not a competitive Pokemon game, at least from what it seems like so far. So the only thing I don't want to do is, and I'll reiterate it in the beginning, don't have me go far and wide for a friggin' berry to make a potion. I'm gonna flip.
That's gonna
Like
happen.
that would be.
That's gonna
I
happen.
feel like it's gonna happen.
Of course,
I
it's an
really do feel
exploration
like it
game. It
is.
is not a normal Pokemon game. It is a casual Pokemon game. It is meant for you to explore. That's the purpose of the game.
And I'm going to face palm. I will probably just go the whole game without the frigging item because I
That's fine.
don't give me that.
Guess what?
You know?
Guess what? You can trade for it.
Okay, well,
Hey,
okay.
very Reddit trading.
So I'm pretty sure they thought of players like you who are not interested in exploration. That's fine.
It's not. I'm not. It's not that I'm not interested in the exploration. I'm not interested in the game. All right, like one of the biggest gripes that I had with Legend of Zelda, um,
Skyward
what's it
Sword.
called? No,
Breath of the
Breath of the
Wild.
Wild.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, yes, yes. Okay.
was the fact that the food that Link created was actually very important to him. If you were going to be an optimal player in the game, or to play the game optimally, you had to create your food. And a lot of times, or some of the times, those materials can tend to be a little bit more difficult to find than just creating chicken and rice. You know, like if you wanted gourmet fish, you had to actually go out there and find the freaking fish. And then, and like, really, really, like I didn't that part I didn't enjoy because it took away from what the game was for me and made it a chore to find fish. Like I didn't want to do that.
You know what Wolf's least favorite mini games are?
Yeah, I don't like those things. But so that's what I'm okay. Bitching is done. I'm done.
I think we could wrap it up there.
Moral of the story: no fishing.
Don't have me go far and wide for friggin' material for a potion or a revive. Don't do that to me. Let me just buy the shit and keep it going.
You need the sacred berries off top of Mount whatever.
Yaboku.
Well,
No,
you can say that, but I can already tell you that that is
I
going to
know.
certainly be in the game. So,
I definitely understand that. I know.
so that's fine. All right. So, anybody else want to have final words?
Nope. We'll see what happens on the 28th.
Yep, good here.
All right. Cool. All right, guys. Well, hope you enjoyed the video. I know there was a few rants and derailments of the conversation, but that's the sort of thing that happens in these episodes. So, if that's something you enjoy at all, then we post podcasts every week, Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's when they publish. So subscribe for more. Like the video if you enjoyed the conversation at all. Leave a comment down below as to what your expectations for Arceus is, or Pokemon Legends Arceus. Or if the game is out and you're listening to this post the release, then you can tell us how wrong we were about some of the things we mentioned. So that's a thing you can do. We also stream on Twitch. Logical Gamers, or Esoteric from Logical Gamers, streams on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 1 a.m. Plays a lot of single player games, and he dabbles in some multiplayer games like Splatoon 2 and Fall Guys. So if you're interested in that, definitely check him out on Twitch. I also stream on Twitch under Blanka Kong at Twitch. I stream mostly retro games, platformers, indie games, things like that. I'll be playing Pokemon on stream, so check me out there if you're interested in seeing my content as well. And I think that's it. So, Esoteric, do you want to tell the people where they can find us on the socials?
Yes, guys. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, Logical Gamers TV. We also incorporated a TikTok as well as a Discord, which will also be noted in the description down below. Just look for the light bulb icon with the cool glasses, and you're there.
All right, sounds good. Thank you guys for a great conversation. Catch you in the next one. Peace.
Bye.
Take care.